Welcome. I'm Michael Erlewine, and I'll be your host for this segment of Spirit Grooves, a show dedicated to alternative awareness. Today we're going to be looking at intense solar activity and how it affects us psychologically and emotionally. I've studied astrology for some 50 years, and over that time I've become increasingly aware just how important these experiences of solar activity are for my internal life. I would even be tempted to say they are our internal life, or at least they very much form and shape it. The sun speaks to us constantly. It rises each day, it shines light, it brings light to us that informs, providing warmth and continuity for those of us here on Earth. I've tried for decades to communicate that the sun is not just our convenient solar furnace, but it too has a spiritual essence, just like we like to think that we do. It too has a soul or a self, and the sun is not some other self or other one, but the same one that we are, and we are the soul of the sun. As the philosopher Parmenides once said, being alone is. We all share one being. In other words, our consciousness is solar in nature. We are the children of the sun in every meaningful way, and when the sun speaks to us, we have no choice but to hear. When that solar disk exhibits sudden changes like flares, prominences, coronal mass ejections, and so on, we change simultaneously as it does, and then are even further affected by the waves of plasma it hurls at Earth. These massive solar events affect everyone here on Earth, but that does not mean that everyone is aware of them. Awareness, as I keep harping, is something that some of us just naturally have and the rest of us must develop. And while most astrological events are subtle, massive events like solar flares and coronal mass ejections are fairly obvious to most of us. They interrupt life as we know it, and they force us in some way to go on instant hiatus and to just time out. Solar flares are conspicuous by their ability to put all of our well-crafted plans and that sometimes tenuous sense of directions that we have on hold, leaving us momentarily suspended, in suspended animation, and looking around us to see just where in life we are. While only days before, all things may have seemed to point forward, like in a line toward the future. With the advent of solar influx, we tend to get stranded in the moment, in the now, leaving the future something of a question mark. We each react differently to this solar stimulus, some with confusion, some with loss of direction or concentration, focus, others with headaches and a sense of being overwhelmed. Things suddenly can seem just too much and we have to go lie down for a bit and so on. You get the idea. Somehow, we have lost the roadmap we were on before the flare occurred, and suddenly here we are, stranded in the present moment once again. It can be a very uncomfortable feeling. On the other hand, some of us get very creative and have the idea of a lifetime. Solar change this strong affects us. It changes us right before our own eyes, while we wait, so to speak. We are used to gradual solar change that does not compromise our sense of dignity and self. Who we think we are. Intense solar influx speeds up the process of change. It turns the wheel of the Dharma, as they say. And change comes in spurts and quantum leaps rather than a trickle. We actually can see ourselves change in real time. And this kind of change is no respecter of persons or place. It just happens seemingly willy-nilly. We change. It's we that change, whether we like it or not. A sign of this deeper change is, as mentioned, the fading out of our current plans, and a sense of being suspended in the moment with no sense of direction. We don't know just where we are for a time, and this can frighten us. When the changes that are introduced take hold, we gradually come out of our shock and begin to remap our terrain. As the smoke clears, so to speak, we once again establish some plan, that linear line toward the future that we find so comforting, the sense that we're going somewhere other than just to be here, to be now, this present moment. Pretty soon, our habitual self takes hold again, and we're back to business as usual. However, in the interim, we may have adjusted our life course and don't even remember doing it. I'm not going to go on and on about this, but hopefully you get the idea. Massive solar influx, solar flares, bring change in quantity chunks, and we try to absorb it as best we can. For those of you who would like to monitor solar activity, there's a convenient website designed for ham radio operators, but it provides images and a detailed report on current solar activity that we can use as well. It's called solarham.com. Check it out. As we all can see, our sun is very active just now. It's communicating to us in a very vivid and direct way by emanating huge clouds of information in various directions. Coronal mass ejections, CME events, are pure material and energy, but they also probably contain some kind of information that updates us and allows our physical structures to be informed and to continue to cohere. Structures that are not continually informed cease to cohere, they cease to hang together and begin to atrophy, fall apart. How such solar or cosmic information is communicated, how it is shared, we don't know. Scientists don't know. That there has to be such informing information, however, seems quite clear. When this kind of solar communication inundates us, as it does with these very strong solar storms, it quickly overflows our sense of direction, and it floods our current plans with change. It's a quality of solar flares and other intense solar influx that it challenges the status quo, like our existing plans and direction, and it injects what may seem to be chaos and change into our lives. This is pure solar creativity coming in, and it does challenge what we currently have going for us by introducing alternate routes, different conditions that we may not have planned for. This is what change is all about. These solar challenges, while they can be upsetting, are usually temporary, and they bring with them, aside from a little chaos, new creative change that we ultimately benefit from. Anyway, it's not like we have a choice. We don't control the sun, not even a little bit. Not fighting this solar input, not fighting these solar tides of change is recommended. Instead, relaxing, going with the flow is suggested. When the solar tide goes out again, that means when the flare dies down, mental landmarks will appear, and your familiar life will once again take on more normal directions. But it will be a new normal. Yes, we will have changed, and we may not even remember just how we were before the onset of the flares. Many solar flares and CME events are termed geo-effective, which means that it's located in the very center of the sun, aimed at us and therefore coming directly at Earth in a great stream, often many times longer than the width of the Earth. so we are all bathed in its influence for some time. What does this mean for us creatively and emotionally? That's a good question. In esoteric astrology, the sun is the heart of our innermost self, not to mention that externally it provides all heat, light, warmth, growth, and so on. Think about that for just a nanosecond, please. A solar flare is an eruption of mass and matter, so when one happens, look for its effects inside of us and not outside. And inside means not just a little inside, but deep inside, as in who we are, or feel we are, or wonder we are. Such a deep shift, a cosmic touch, may slow us down a bit today or even for days, and our decisions, outer events, projects may well go on hold while we reorient ourselves and take the change in. These solar flares can be very strong events, and I tend to just roll with them and try not to be too upset that whatever schedule I have going gets a little trampled, or at least rearranged. It's all good. And awareness of these events on our part depends on how aware we are of any of our inner goings-on. This is why I study meditation, because I want to witness these inner changes and to be more aware of them. Nothing touches us more deeply than solar change, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. So time out a bit and experience them if you can. Large solar eruptions typically are equivalent to several 100 million hydrogen bombs, enough energy to supply Earth for the next 100 million years. More important, scientists have found that the sun emits theta waves during its very strong eruptions. Brain waves in the frequency of theta are what occur when meditators go into deep meditation. The sun is somehow communicating to us, or properly put, we are speaking to ourselves deep beyond thought or thinking, like right now. The key to understanding all of this is interdependency. All of the mechanistic parts that scientists measure combine into a whole living entity that is knowing itself through us. Interdependency is key to holistic vision. We, our consciousness, we are the eyeball of the universe looking at itself. I've written for decades that we already are the spacemen we vainly search for out in the universe. In other words, we are intelligent life in the universe, the intelligent life of the galaxy coming to know itself. Large solar eruptions around the time of sunspot maximum are deeply, deeply creative and seminal, creative beyond anything else imaginable. So prepare for a very creative time now in the next year or so. Work on your awareness so that you can witness this creativity in real time. Here's a little poem I wrote to myself about the confusion of events in times of solar influx. Time to mind. Lost again in the swing of time, I agree to forget what I find so hard to remember, this moment. Always later, urged awake by impermanence, I'm back again, but farther down the road. Time takes my mind in small and larger bites. The little ones I reconnect and can remember, but the larger gaps I can only leap across, guess at, and hopefully learn to say more in silence than in words. I guess the main takeaway from all of this solar activity is to have patience as far as looking for direction or ascertaining what direction you are on or should be taking. Solar flares are a good time to practice taking things a day at a time, rather than guessing where things are at or where things should be. Things are not at where they will be, so I tell myself to just relax in the suspended time. The other shoe has not fallen yet. And when there is this much solar disturbance, like during a solar flare, part of the creativity of it all depends on our taking these changes to the path, as the Buddhists say. We can't step back and observe yet, so every doubt, condition, or thought we have needs to be included in the solution. By taking things to the path, I mean, when we have fears, doubts, projections, and concerns this early in the game, while the flare is taking place, and when they weigh upon us and therefore actually affect our experience before it has even finished happening, that's the time to understand that these doubts, the doubts themselves, need to be recognized as just another part of the flare experience, and they have to be folded in or included. In other words, embrace the doubts too. Include them and realize that they're not definitive of anything. They mean nothing, but are just part of the aura of the experience itself. Accept all of this and flip the experience more positively, or at least suspend any judgment of it. In other words, realize you are in panic and extend your awareness to include the doubts, thus setting them to rest and resetting the experience from one of concluding, drawing conclusions, to one of still experiencing. It's way too early to say anything about it. If we're looking to get a handle on what is happening, where we are at, we're jumping the gun. We can't objectify, much less analyze, anything that is not finished appearing. We have to experience it first, so just soak it in. This is the experience, including the doubts, and in the midst of it we may not see clearly yet. Of course we want to know what it all means, but it all has not finished happening, so that would be a rush to judgment. And waiting for that other shoe to drop can be the hardest part of times like these. Just let it be. I hope I'm being clear enough. When we are in the midst of these solar eruptions and still taking it all in, we have to experience it before we can define the experience. It has to, at least more of it, move from the present into the past. That is, before we can get a handle on it and objectify it. When they're taking place, we're in the midst of it, in the thick of it, so just try to enjoy. I tell myself, no one ever said it's going to be easy, or our being is in waiting, as the old phrase puts it. I've been asked what are the internal signs that we should look for in these solar flares, and I can only share my own experiences with these great events. There's nothing quite like a strong solar event to shuffle my options and to offer me at least the opportunity for a new deal. The deep imprinting of a solar flux event has the ability to wipe out my short-term memory, at least as regards my current plans or direction, and tends to leave me stranded in myself, standing there vacantly looking around for which way to go once again. Luckily, this only lasts for a day or so, and then I pick up, not where I left off, but on some more or less obvious line or direction. And if that fails to happen, I start sorting myself down to basics. For example, one common response at these times involves me cleaning out my office, or one of the areas where I have stacked and stored too much stuff. It's mindless work, but just what I need to be doing at these times of inner reorganization and change. No, I can't say I have a clearly defined path or direction, but I've learned not to worry about that, but just to be patient and let the inner forces do their work. It all sorts itself out soon enough, and from the chaos, some kind of new, at least for me, view or take on things gradually emerges. And the new view always seems to contain some sort of a path, and once on any old sort of path, like a walk in the woods, I'm content to go on with my life. Things fall into line. Like a school of fish, all the signs eventually line up again and appear to be going in the same direction. I find this comforting. So what is this? This, for me, is change. Not the superficial change of an outward event or sign, but deeper, inner change that actually rearranges the basic rules of my life from the bottom up. And yes, often I can remember having been here before, seen life as I now see it, but I can't quite remember just where or when. So I tend to go with the flow, once a flow or direction actually appears. And pretty soon I'm setting up shop all over again, making sense out of chaos, rebuilding my world, probably in my own image. My old Humpty Dumpty self puts itself back together again and life goes on. This certainly is a dramatic image of samsara, what the Buddhists call cyclic existence.